You are exhausted, not because life is too heavy, because you have been carrying things that were never yours to carry. The question is not how to become stronger. The question is why you keep picking them up. Welcome to the Stoic Compass. I am Epictetus, and today I'm joined by Carl Jung and LAOZI. Today we are examining why true power comes from choosing your burdens. Let us start with the obvious thing that nobody wants to say. Most people are not crushed by their burdens. They are crushed by burdens they chose without knowing they were choosing. The man who says he has no choice is usually the man who made a dozen choices that led him to this moment and is now refusing to look back at them. You picked up the obligation. You agreed to the expectation. You told yourself it was forced on you, and that lie is the thing that is actually breaking you. The burden is not the problem. The blindness is the problem.
I would not call it blindness exactly. That framing suggests the person simply failed to look. But often they looked, and what they saw was too threatening to hold. The burden gets picked up because it serves something. It fills a role in the psyche that the person cannot consciously acknowledge. The man who carries everyone else's problems has a reason for that. He may be avoiding the one problem that is entirely his own. The woman who accepts too much at work may be terrified of what she would find in the silence if she stopped. Blindness is not quite right. It is more like a deliberate not seeing, and there is a difference.
You are both describing a person who does not know what they are doing, but that is only half of it. The other half is that they do not know what they want. If you ask most people what they would carry if they could choose freely, they cannot answer. They have spent so long carrying what was handed to them that the question feels strange. The burden has become the identity. Putting it down would not feel like relief. It would feel like disappearing.
That is a psychological observation, and it may be accurate, but it does not change the practical question, which is, what are you going to do about it? You can explain the roots of a bad habit for a decade and still have the habit at the end of the decade. At some point, knowing why you pick something up has to become the reason you stop picking it up. Otherwise, the explanation is just another burden, the story of why you cannot change.
That is unfair to the process. You are treating insight as if it is merely decorative, as if understanding yourself is a hobby instead of a prerequisite. There are people who have tried to put things down the way you describe, Epictetus, by sheer decision. And they put down one burden and immediately picked up another one that looked different but came from the same place. The pattern repeats because the source has not been touched. You cannot will your way past something you refuse to look at.
And yet, there is a version of looking that also becomes a burden. I have seen people spend years studying their wounds with great thoroughness and arrive at nothing. The examination becomes the project. The project becomes the reason not to change. At some point, looking inward and looking outward are not so different. Both can be ways of staying very busy while nothing moves.
Now that I agree with. You want to talk about burdens that are self-created? The self-examination that never ends is one of the heaviest. Some people use their own psychology as a cage. The point of understanding yourself is to be free to act differently. If the understanding has not produced a single different action, what exactly has it produced?
It has produced the conditions for a different action. You cannot rush it. The psyche has its own timing. What looks like stagnation from the outside may be preparation. Not every process shows its work. The seed does not appear to be doing anything for a long time before it breaks through.
The seed is not trying to break through, though. That is the part you keep missing. It breaks through because that is what it does when the conditions are right. The trying is often what delays it. You are both, in different ways, telling people to do something. Epictetus says, decide. Jung says, examine, but the person is already exhausted from doing. The question might be whether they can stop insisting that they have to solve this and simply see what it is.
Seeing what it is and then doing nothing is just observation with a philosophical coat on it. I am not against stillness. I am against stillness that masquerades as wisdom while the person continues to suffer from the same pattern year after year. At some point, the Taoist who has observed the nature of his suffering very peacefully for a decade is not enlightened. He is stuck, and calling his stuckness naturalness does not make it less stuck.
You are assuming the goal is to not be stuck. What if what looks like being stuck is the natural resting point for that person at that time? You keep importing the idea that movement is progress. A river does not move toward its destination. It moves because that is its nature. When a person finds their actual nature, the movement happens without the insistence.
I think what LAOZI is pointing at, and I want to name this carefully, is that both your approach, Epictetus, and the excessive self-examination I sometimes advocate can be driven by the same underlying anxiety. The anxiety that if we stop managing, stop controlling, stop demanding movement, something terrible will happen. What LAOZI is calling the natural order, I might call the deeper self. There is a layer of the psyche that knows what it needs. The problem is that most people's conscious will is so loud that they cannot hear it.
The deeper self, the natural order. You are both describing the same invisible thing and calling it by different names and expecting me to find that useful. Here is what I find useful. A person who looks at every burden they are carrying and asks, honestly, did I choose this? Does it serve something I actually care about? Is this mine? That question, that specific, practical, uncomfortable question, will tell you more than any amount of depth psychology or philosophical nature watching.
That question is better than what you usually ask. I will grant you that. Most people do not ask it at all, but even that question has a flaw. When you ask, did I choose this? You are assuming that the answer will be obvious. Sometimes a burden was chosen so long ago or so automatically that the choice is invisible. The person looks and sees nothing they chose. They are not lying. They genuinely cannot find it.
This is precisely where the shadow becomes relevant. The choices we make from the unconscious do not feel like choices. They feel like fate. The man who always ends up in the same kind of suffocating relationship, or the woman who always agrees to the project that breaks her, is not choosing stupidly. She is choosing from a pattern that is older than her conscious mind. And that pattern has a name, a history, a shape. Giving it a name is not decoration. It is the beginning of power over it.
Fine. I will concede that the origin of a choice can be hidden, but I want to push on something. When you say giving it a name is the beginning of power over it, what does that power look like? What does the person actually do differently the next morning? Because if the answer is they understand themselves better, I am going to keep pushing. Understanding is not the destination. A different action is the destination.
The different action is they pause before they say yes. They notice the pull. They recognize this is the familiar weight. The one I have been picking up since I was 12 years old, because that was when I learned that carrying things was the price of being loved. And in that moment of recognition, they have a choice they did not have before. Not a guaranteed choice, not an easy one, but a real one. That is the power.
And if they cannot pause, if they are already exhausted, already in the moment, already reaching for the burden before the thought arrives, what then?
Then they missed it this time, and they catch it next time. That is not failure, that is the practice. You do not get the choice right on the first attempt or even the 10th. You get it eventually because you kept asking the question.
I think you are right that the question matters. What I would add is that the question does not always come from effort. Sometimes it comes from simply being still enough to notice what is already there. You do not have to hunt for the burden. If you stop moving long enough, it shows itself. Not because you are weak, because it is there.
There is something in what both of you are saying that I want to hold together rather than choose between. The power to choose your burdens does not come from will alone, and it does not come from observation alone. It comes from a particular quality of honest self-knowledge that is also in motion. It sees, and then it moves. It does not see forever. It does not move blindly. The person who can say, clearly without flinching, I am carrying this because I am afraid of what happens if I put it down. That person is already closer to putting it down than they were before they said it.
Yes, and the person who says it and then waits for permission to put it down from their past, from their pattern, from their understanding, that person is still carrying it. The permission is yours to give. It was always yours to give.
Power is a strange word for this. What you are both describing sounds more like becoming less in the way of yourself. The person who chooses their burdens well is not more powerful than they were. They are simply less in conflict with what they actually are. That is not power. That is clarity. And maybe clarity is better than power, because power still has something to prove.
I will take that. Power that has something to prove is a burden too. You carry it constantly and it never gets lighter. The only weight that does not exhaust you is the weight you chose because it is genuinely yours.
And even then, be careful. Even the burdens we consciously choose can hide something we did not intend to carry. The person who chooses a life of service may be genuinely called to it. Or they may be fleeing something. Both can look identical from the outside. Knowing which one you are requires the kind of honesty that most people only manage in their worst moments.
Or in their quietest ones.
So we are agreed that the honest question is the beginning. We are not agreed on what comes after it. That is fine. The listener does not need us to agree. They need the question.
They need to be willing to sit with the answer, whatever it is.
And to look at what the answer costs them to admit. That cost is usually the clearest indicator of how important it is.
You have heard the argument. Now set it down. There is one thing underneath all of it, and it is simpler than anything we have said. Most people think power is something you accumulate. More strength, more endurance, more capacity to bear what life throws at you. That is not power. That is a competition with no finish line, and you will lose it eventually because nobody holds everything forever. Real power is narrower than that. It is the ability to look at everything you are carrying and answer one honest question. Did I choose this? And does it serve something I actually care about? Not something you were told to care about. Not something that earns you approval or keeps the peace or protects you from a conversation you are avoiding. Something you genuinely care about. That question will make you uncomfortable. Good. The discomfort is information. What you find when you sit with it is not weakness. It is the shape of what you have been carrying without knowing it. The burden you chose freely does not feel the same as the one you inherited without asking. Even when they weigh the same, they carry differently. One depletes you. The other costs you something but gives something back. Today, try this. Pick one thing in your life that feels heavy. Not the heaviest, just one. And ask yourself plainly, if I could put this down with no consequences, would I? If the answer is yes, that is not an instruction to drop it immediately. It is information. It tells you that you have been treating an unchosen burden as if it were yours by nature. And that is the first thing worth knowing. You do not need more strength. You need better judgment about what deserves your strength. The life that is crushing you is not the one that asks too much of you. It is the one where you said yes before you looked at what you were agreeing to. That moment, before the yes, is where you live or do not live. Nothing outside this room has changed. But you know something now that you cannot unknow. Use it. If today's conversation has served you, take it further. Pay Attention by C. Trebu. 12 Lessons in the Practice of Seeing Clearly. Available now on Amazon.